Thanks for your interest in running the Ontario Justice Education Network Steps to Justice workshops. We created this video to give you a short introduction to how the workshop works and how to run it with your own group. So let's get started. So what is this workshop? It was first developed for youth and young adults to accomplish two main objectives. First, to introduce the fundamentals of an area of law, and second, to introduce a resource called Steps to Justice, which they can use in the workshop to find legal information, and after the workshop when legal issues arise in their own lives. This workshop is part of a series that uses the same format for a bunch of different legal topics. So this is a general introduction that will work no matter which topic you try, whether it's employment law or residential tenancies. These were originally designed for high school law classrooms, but we've successfully used them in community settings with post-secondary students and for training community workers. Historically, our facilitators have been law students, teachers, social workers, and others who are familiar with STEPS. The basic structure is really simple. It follows common, well-established pedagogical processes developed by lawyers and educators together. So the workshops are all legally accurate and pedagogically sound. It uses a simple introduction with a hook to get the audience's attention, a short demonstration of how to use the resource, and then we have the group apply it in small groups, share back their findings, and then close with an extension or challenge activity at the end. But before we get to all that, what is Steps to Justice? STEPS is a plain language website from Community Legal Education Ontario that's written and maintained by lawyers, so you can trust that it's legally accurate and up to date. It was written based on questions people actually ask about common legal topics and not arranged based on the way lawyers think. It's available in English and French, and it integrates a bunch of different things a person might need if they were facing a legal problem, including legal information, recommended next steps to take, supporting guides that can help you actually take those steps, links to the actual correct legal forms that you'll need, definitions of complicated legal terms, and places to get legal help. All in one place, and all written at a grade 8 to 10 reading level. Before the workshop, you should take some time to familiarize yourself with STEPS. It's good to get a feel for the functions and the specific paths you'll be using in your presentation to find answers. This is the best way to avoid awkwardly fumbling around looking for answers in front of an audience, which no one wants. So let's look at the website, stepstojustice.ca. This is the homepage here. You can see that there are a couple of ways to start finding content on a bunch of legal topics. These are the big legal areas where people tend to have trouble in real life, and they're also the same topics our workshops cover. Once you select a topic, you can choose from a long list of legal questions or use natural language search to find your own. When you find a question you want to read, clicking on it will bring you to a page like this. Now I want to pause here to show you a little more about how STEPS works. So the main page here has the question in yellow on the left and the basic answer in white on the right. But here, you can see a list of the recommended next steps, things you should consider doing if you have this kind of legal problem. So in this case, it recommends that you find out if Ontario's pay laws apply to you, check your pay stub, figure out what your employer owes you, and consider making a claim with the Ministry of Labour. Let's say in this case you've done the first few steps already, and so you're going to click on step number 4, consider making a claim with the Ministry of Labour. It's going to take you to this page. So making a claim like this is a big process, and as a result, it's going to give you this link here, which will take you to a different page on Steps to Justice that explains in more detail how to make a complaint with the Ministry of Labour. If you follow it, you're going to have all the information you need to decide if this is a path you want to take. Sometimes on Steps, you'll see a phrase in a yellow bubble like this one. That means there's a definition available for that term. So if you click on it, you'll get a little overlay like this with an explanation. In this case, the site recommends as step number 3 that you fill out the Ministry of Labour claims form. It tells you how to fill it out and what you'll need. One useful thing about STEPS is that it tells you what kinds of information you need to give in these situations. It can be very daunting for people without a legal background to fill out one of these forms. And here you can see that STEPS will tell you what kind of questions to expect and what information you'll need to give. Whenever Steps to Justice says that you'll need a particular legal form, it'll give you a link to that form right there in the text, so you don't need to wonder if you've got the right one. Here you can see that it gives all of the practical information you need about where to file a claim, including all of the options, all the contact information you need, and what to expect going forward. And continuing further down the page, you'll see the You May Also Need section. This is where you can find helpful guides, handbooks, and other documents that may help you deal with your legal issue. In this case, they're recommending the Ministry of Labour's page called Before You Start, What You Need to Know About Filing an Employment Standards Claim. Over here you can hit the button that says Find Services to get a listing of the local services near you that can help with this kind of issue. At the very bottom of the page, you'll see a selection of related questions. This is there to help you spot other related issues that may be connected to your main question or that tend to come up for people in your situation. Finally, in the corner, you have the option to access a chat service that can connect you with someone at Community Legal Education Ontario who can help you navigate the site and find what you need. And that's the site. So let's talk about the materials associated with this workshop that we've provided to help you run it on your own. First up are the slides. We have provided a PowerPoint presentation that you can use to show scenarios and guide the flow of the workshop. It's worth talking to the people who are hosting your space in advance to make sure that you will have access to a projection system. Second in our materials, you'll see the Facilitator's Guide. This is your manual for running the workshop. You can use it ahead of time to familiarize yourself with what you'll be doing, and you can bring it into the session with you to the front of the class to use as your speaking notes and answer key. Looking at the Facilitator's Guide, you'll see some suggested timings. These are a guide to help keep you on track to finish the workshop in the standard 60 or 90 minutes. The Facilitator's Guide also contains the full text of every scenario that you'll be raising with your group and scripts of all the questions you should put to them. Finally, as I mentioned, the Facilitator's Guide serves as your answer key. At the end of each question in the guide, you'll see a little number in parentheses. As we've discussed, the goal of the workshop is to get your audience to look up answers for themselves on Steps to Justice. So that number, or sometimes it'll say landing, refers to where you can find that information on the site. So your Facilitator's Guide might have told you what question to pull up on Steps, and if you see a 3 there in your guide, it means the answer is found on step number 3. If it says landing, that means the answer is on the main landing page for that Steps question. We've also provided handouts for students that include both an information sheet and a worksheet. You should decide in advance who's going to print these out and bring them to the workshop. A teacher may have a print budget and be able to take care of it, but in a community space, you will probably need to print them yourself ahead of time. Finally, make sure you're going to have access to the Steps to Justice website in the space where you'll be doing the workshop. You're going to want your audience to have access to Wi-Fi as well so they can pull up the site on their phones or their laptops. You may also need to make special arrangements to allow your audience to keep their devices with them if, like at a school for example, phones and tablets and such are probably usually banned. Alright, now let's dive into the structure of the workshop itself. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to start with an introduction, including what's called a Minds On activity. This one is a series of simple true or false questions that you can put to the group. It'll give you a sense of how much they already know about this topic and give them an easy way to warm up to you and start participating. Next comes what we call the hook. That's the first scenario you will show on the PowerPoint and discuss as a class. You'll talk through what your audience thinks is legal or illegal in this scenario. This should be short, only a minute or two, because you're just speculating. In the demonstration section that follows, you and the class will work together to look up the actual answers for scenario number 1 on Steps to Justice. So this is where you want to follow the script and the little numbers in parentheses on your Facilitator's Guide to take the right path through steps and introduce it to your students. Next, you should break the group into small groups to tackle scenarios 2 to 5 on their own. You can assign a different scenario to each group using the handouts and get them to try exploring those questions themselves. It's a good idea in this part for you to try to circulate and do some coaching if you have any groups that are having trouble staying on task or having difficulty navigating the site. What we really want is for people to practice issue spotting and finding answers for themselves. Once all the groups are ready, have them report back what they've learned. Each scenario addresses a different part of your legal topic, so asking the small groups to share back ensures that everyone will get exposure to all the elements that you're covering, not just their own. The way you use this last section can vary. If you only have about 60 minutes, like the length of an average high school class, you probably won't get to it because you're going to want to prioritize saving time for questions and answers, and that's fine. But if you do have a little more time, for example if it's a 90-minute workshop, we've included scenario number 6 as an extension and challenge opportunity. This scenario, as you'll see, is a little longer and a little more complicated. It involves some compounding legal issues and some more context. It's designed differently from the earlier scenarios. This time we've only given some pretty general guiding questions to help your group identify the legal issues and begin researching answers. In many cases, these last scenarios are designed to touch on issues that a teacher or group worker will have encountered in working with the audience, and it'll give you an opportunity to address those topics directly. So if you have the time, try showing your audience scenario number 6 on the PowerPoint slides and working through it together. Even if you don't have time to get into it, if you're working in a classroom, the teacher may choose to send it home for homework or use it in the next class as an extension activity, and you can always leave it with the community partner in case they want to use it with the group later. And that's really all there is to it. If you have more time or if you're doing a series of workshops and you want a neat activity to pair with this one, consider OJEN's Access to Justice game. It introduces the resources and challenges that people in Ontario face when they're trying to get help with a legal issue. It'll help you go one step further and connect your audience with a bunch of local services and sources of support. But you can also leave it right there. This is a great self-contained workshop and it's complete on its own. We just want to send you away with a couple of notes on the big picture. It's important to stay connected to the goals of this workshop because there's a lot of nitty-gritty and it's easy to get lost in the details. The most important thing is that your audience gets a good introduction to Steps to Justice as a trustworthy source of legal information. It's easy to forget that most people don't have access to legal knowledge in their daily lives, so this can be a major source of help. In many cases, you may be the first legal professional they've met, or the first friendly one. So take care to make sure everyone in your audience feels respected and heard, even if their questions are kind of challenging or based on misinformation. You have a perfect platform in these workshops to correct those misunderstandings and help them start to see legal professionals as helpers and not just authorities. Either one of those goals is more important than getting all of the information in your workshop across. Part of the point of the workshop is that Steps to Justice will continue to be available to your audience long after you leave, so it makes sense to give that the most space. You won't always be there to help them with their legal problems, but hopefully through this workshop, they'll have started to build their research skills and learned about a good place to start. And finally, remember to have fun. Doing plea is a great and worthwhile thing. It can be really rewarding to engage in this way with audiences who need the information. So thank you for supporting justice education in your community. If you have any questions or need help with any of these resources, please visit our website at www.ojen.ca, send us an email to info@ojen.ca, or give our office a call at 416-761-9963.